Christian Dior didn't wait for fame to sell perfume. February 12th, 1947. The exact same day he presented his first collection. Miss Dior was already sitting in the salons. Most fashion houses build the image first, then license a fragrance years later once the name is worth something. Dior launched both on day one. That single decision is still the blueprint for how the house makes money today. Here's how it works. Here's the problem every luxury house has to solve. Scarcity is what makes people want the brand, but scarcity alone can't pay for stores, staff, product development, or inventory. Expand too little, the brand stays fragile. Expand too wide, it stops feeling special. What was Dior's answer, you might ask? Keep the couture rare and build a second product that repeats the same codes at a price and frequency far more people can actually buy. Miss Dior didn't turn couture into a mass product. It gave more people a door into the Dior world. That's the kind of system we break down here on Fashion Business Blueprint. Miss Dior isn't valuable just because it's old. Age alone doesn't build a franchise. It's valuable because it's a memory system that can be renewed. The 1947 founding story, the name, the flowers, the bow, the houndstooth, the bottle, the tie back to couture. Every new version can change the formula, the packaging, the campaign, and still borrow instant recognition from that shared memory. The product is temporary, the code is the asset that compounds. The one risk worth noticing is that if every version just repeats romance with nothing new, the history stops working for you and just becomes decoration. Now the modern proof, Sauvage launched in 2015 into one of the most crowded fragrance markets in the world. LVMH called it an unprecedented success. In their 2025 results, LVMH confirmed Sauvage was still the best-selling men's fragrance on the planet. We don't get units or profit. LVMH doesn't disclose that. But this confirms it as a major scale platform, and the logic behind it is systematic. Different concentrations, refillable formats, travel sizes, grooming, skincare, gifting, even exceptional craft editions. One recognizable name, several ways to spend more or spend more often. Miss Dior carries the founding story. Sauvage proves the house can still build a global engine today. A catalog just adds products. A franchise makes them work together. If breakdowns like this are useful, subscribing helps a lot. Now, here's the number that changes how you should read this. The bottle isn't the unit that matters. The ladder around the name is. At the bottom, an entry size that lowers the barrier to a first purchase without discounting. Then the core fragrance, the one that makes the whole franchise recognizable. Above that, a stronger concentration for people ready to trade up. Same idea, more commitment. Body products, grooming, travel sizes add more reasons to buy more often. A refill brings the customer back to something they already own. And at the very top, rare materials and limited editions restore exclusivity inside a name everyone already knows. Every layer has one unified job, which is to recruit, convert, retain, trade up, or rebuild the halo. A catalog just adds products. A franchise makes them work together. Here's the fact that changes how you should read this business. Refillable products made up 21% of Perfume's Christian Dior's sales in 2022, according to Vogue Business. Internal management figures cited in our white paper put refillable Sauvage specifically at 36% that same year. Historical numbers, not live data, but they prove refill was already a serious part of the business, not a sustainability side note. Think about what a refill actually does. The customer now owns a compatible object. Replacing it is easy. The return path is already built in. Switching to a competitor doesn't just mean abandoning a scent. It means abandoning a useful object they already paid for. Dior also states one 100 milliliter bottle plus a 300 milliliter refill cuts environmental impact versus 4 separate bottles. The sustainability story and the retention mechanism reinforce each other. Miss Dior and Sauvage aren't just two products. They're built to work as a pair. Miss Dior brings heritage, women's recruitment, gifting, emotional continuity. Sauvage brings modern male recruitment, blockbuster visibility, and refill-driven repeat purchase. Different enough audiences that they barely compete with each other, while both feed Dior Beauty as a whole. That lets the house rotate the spotlight. In 2024 and 2025, LVMH highlighted Miss Dior and Sauvage. In the first half of 2026, the momentum shifted to J'adore Intense, Dior Addict, La Collection Privée, Forever, and Backstage. The older franchises didn't stop working. This is just what a healthy, evergreen portfolio looks like. Different lines taking turns in the spotlight. Here's where most people get this story wrong. Dior does not publish revenue, margin, ad spend, or cash flow for Miss Dior or Sauvage individually. Nobody actually knows the profit on one bottle. What LVMH does report is a perfumes and cosmetics segment covering several maisons, 8.174 billion euros in revenue for 2025, 727 million in operating profit, and 8.9% margin. Compare that to fashion and leather goods, which ran a 35% margin the same year. Beauty is not the effortless, almost pure profit machine people assume. Formula development, packaging engineering, tooling, ambassadors, media, sampling, retail support, and inventory all eat cash before a bottle ever turns a profit. A famous product can be genuinely valuable without its actual economics being public knowledge. The real question isn't, is the retail price high? It's how much cash goes out before any of it comes back. Testing and development start before a single euro of revenue. Packaging tooling requires commitment before demand is proven. Launch media, ambassadors, samples, and staff training all happen before conversion. Wholesale and retail markups mean the sticker price isn't what the maison actually keeps. And inventory sits on the books while supplier and campaign bills are already due. Perfumer Francis Coujon has called a major fragrance launch a colossal investment. For L'Or de J'adore, he said, composition alone took about 8 months, then roughly a year of production before it ever reached a shelf. If you're running a franchise like this, every layer needs its own number. Recruitment. New to brand buyers and acquisition cost. The core product. Conversion and full price sell-through, retention. Repeat rate and refill penetration, trade up. How much of the mix is moving to premium concentrations? Frequency. Units per customer across body, grooming, skincare, gifting. Seasonal basket size and December sell-through. And for every renewal, you have to separate real new demand from just moving loyal customers between bottles they'd have bought anyway. A launch can look like a win and still just be cannibalizing your own base. Measure the whole franchise, not the one SKU that's getting the press. If you're building an emerging house, don't copy, launch a perfume. Copy the architecture. First, define your halo, the one product or experience that expresses the brand at full clarity. Second, pick a participation product that repeats those codes at a purchase rhythm people can actually afford. Fragrance, jewelry, silk, leather goods, even a service. Third, Build the franchise path before you build a big catalog. Decide the entry point, the core, the trade-up, what drives repeat purchase, and what restores rarity later. Fourth, model the real economics: net revenue after route to market, contribution after launch costs, inventory needs, cash payback. Fifth, protect the channel. In luxury, distribution isn't an afterthought. Where and how it's sold is part of the design. This system can absolutely fail. Too many versions blur the hero product. A new concentration can cannibalize the core instead of adding real demand. Too much visibility turns recognizable into ordinary. A campaign can lean on one ambassador until it goes stale. Gift sets create working capital drag if forecasting is off. Refills need customer education and easy access, or they never convert. Grooming and skincare extensions need real category credibility. A famous fragrance name alone won't sell a good moisturizer. Watch for the warning signs, which are soft to sell through, falling repeat rate, discount pressure, excess inventory, or a launch growing while the total franchise doesn't. Scale only stays valuable while the brand protects the exact thing that made it desirable in the first place. So here's the real answer, not the myth. Miss Dior proved the house could build authority through couture and make that authority portable through fragrance. Sauvage proved the same blueprint still works a century later on a global scale. But the engine isn't one bottle. It's memory, an installed customer base, and controlled distribution working together with a renewal calendar that keeps the icons alive without turning every franchise into the headline at once. The evidence supports calling Miss Dior and Sauvage strategically vital revenue platforms. It does not support inventing product-level profit or claiming beauty quietly funds couture. The dress built desire, the fragrance built scale, and the real advantage was designing both as one system. This is Fashion Business Blueprint. Subscribe for more business-focused content on fashion, brands, and the systems that create value, where we look beyond what fashion makes and examine how design becomes brand equity, cash flow, and lasting institutional value.